While we do a little housekeeping, I'd like to declare this meeting of the Town of Stockbridge Planning Board on August 3rd open. Thank you all for joining us physically, or what's the right word, virtually? No, it's not virtual.
Remotely.
Remotely. You're still real, you're just remote, you're not virtual. Meaning Kate and Carl. So the items on the agenda are few, but there might be some lengthy discussion of the second item. We deferred at the last meeting the approval of the July 6th and July 20th meeting minutes because Kate had some suggested changes, which she shared with us this afternoon. And I assume everybody has read them. Do we need to read these into the minutes, or what do you think, Jennifer? Do we need to pronounce them?
Has everybody read them?
I can pull them up if you want.
We all have them.
I think we all have them, Kate.
It's good for the public, maybe.
That's,
Yeah, okay. To the extent the public might be watching later. Yes, there's nobody else on at the moment, apparently.
Can you all see?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so basically, I was just trying to incorporate a little bit more of the discussion from the July 6th meeting.
Mm-hmm.
with Jeff Lacy. So I didn't go into detail. I just included those categories that he covered. And then for the fourth paragraph, I felt that it was important to cover some of the discussion. So I included that as well. So basically, the third and fourth paragraphs that I've got here are intended to replace the existing third and fourth paragraph. And with that, I guess I'm going to make a motion to incorporate these amendments into the minutes from July 6th.
So a motion's been made. Is there a second?
second.
Should she read what the changes are?
No, I don't think so. These now, because this is being recorded, this is now part of the public record. Anybody that comes back to CTSB will be able to see them.
Okay, okay.
So basically, I just covered some of the categories that Jeff responded to. And then in the fourth paragraph, I just covered a little bit more of the discussion on the 20 Mackinac Shores special permit request.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Is there any discussion of these changes? Any concerns, questions, comments? So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of incorporating these changes, replacements to the third and fourth paragraphs of the July 6th meeting minutes?
I'll take a roll call because.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Marie,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
Okay, that's
It's
everybody.
unanimous. Thank you, Kate. And then there's the July 20th minutes.
Yeah, and this is just a correction. The date in the minutes that were sent out was June 6th, and it should be July 6th. And then I added that I had read the section from the open meeting law guide. And that Bill had asked that amendments to the minutes be submitted in writing.
Okay. Are you making a motion to substitute this for the fourth paragraph of the July 20th meeting minutes?
Let Look at the fourth paragraph to see if there was anything else there that we don't want to lose. Hold on. Yeah, substitute it for, except where there's, yeah, substitute it except for the roll call vote part.
Okay. So
It's,
this would replace what is currently the relevant part of the earlier version, correct?
yeah,
Okay, is that clear? I think so. So will you make the motion to that effect?
I move that we incorporate the amendment here into the relevant section of the July 20 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Jennifer, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Marie,
Aye.
Bill,
Yes, aye.
Barry,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay, got that housekeeping out of the way, thank you. The next item is a kind of a generic topic. Marie and I talked about this last week and thought it would be useful as kind of a next step in this process of this draft bylaw to try to identify each of us in our own minds and individually what the remaining open points are in the existing bylaw. I don't know how many we're going to come up with, but I think if we can identify and maybe agree at least on some of them by consensus, if no other way, to not to change necessarily or resolve the open points, but I think we'd make progress simply by identifying what we agree are, hopefully can agree on as the remaining open points to be subsequently addressed in an orderly fashion at a future meeting or meetings, and with or without Jeff Lacy or Randall Aaron or anybody else. Does that sound like a reasonable approach? I assume you all have the latest draft, it's draft 6 of the bylaw. I think, Jennifer, you sent it out again, didn't you?
yeah, I mean, if I can make a copy for anybody that doesn't have it.
I have an extra one if somebody is missing, needs one.
I would use it just because my pile of stuff here is growing and I don't know if I can dig it out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, just pulling mine out, excuse me.
Sorry.
So maybe we could go through it and each of us take notes to the extent that we can delineate it in the minutes. That would be ideal. Even if there's no discussion, just to enumerate the points that we've not yet agreed on. And it seems to me, one of the first items, I'll just start off, is on the first page, 6.24.1 under purposes and applicability. Section B is the question of applicability to subdivisions of land of 20 acres or greater. Are we agreed that that's the right size for the application of this bylaw? Should it be some other number, other size?
I'm not sure everybody agreed on that. I mean,
That's why I ask.
I think that might be something that would be a discussion point. I don't know if anybody else feels 20 is not okay.
Any
If
comments?
it's okay, it's okay.
Any comments on 20 acres? Should it be larger, smaller?
Bill, I think that before you even get into the details, I think it's important to include that not everybody agrees that this bylaw is even necessary.
I get that. And you're on record to that effect. But I think we have an obligation collectively to work through it. I simply don't feel personally that we've reached a point where we should abandon this project. I accept that you and others have some serious reservations about either the whole thing, as you just said, or sections of it. I think my view is we need to keep working on it. Eventually, it will come to a vote of this body, and we'll either accept it or reject it. And one way or the other, it will go in the dumpster, or will go to through the rest of the process of approving a new bylaw. But I think we need to identify, as I said, open issues, open points, things that we have not yet agreed on, aside from the whole shooting match, so that we can narrow down what our differences are and see if we can't come to a resolution where we've got a bylaw that we can vote up or down. And I don't know what the outcome of such a vote would be, pending how we resolve some of these open points. But I do think we need to go through the process to, it seems to me, to a kind of completion before we vote. Unless you want me to take a vote now on abandoning the bylaw. If somebody wants to make a motion that we abandon the work on this bylaw,
I think we at least owe
Feel
it
free.
to the town. I think we at least owe it to the town to bring it before some of them and I know there are people in town that don't like this, but I think there are people in town that do. And I think with all the money and time we've spent, I think the town deserves to have some input into it. And have some say in it.
I'm not sure that the fact that a lot of time and money has been put into it is necessarily the justification to keep going with it. I mean, I guess I would have liked to have seen, I'm going to read a section from that email that we received from one resident. And I guess I feel like this is what should have come first and what still could come first. His name is Bruce Blair, and he wrote, "How well can you describe the impact of NHRPZ? What are the pros and cons? What will the town actually look like after it is implemented? We need an unbiased assessment. Speaking for myself and numerous others, no more sales pitch, please." And I guess I would add to that, I always felt like a first step to this process was that planning board members would, talk about their vision for the town and what direction they felt that this should bring the town in.
I thought that's what we sort of had been doing.
I haven't really heard that from most of the board members. I've heard discussion of this bylaw. I haven't heard, what's your vision for the town? And, what I think if we could establish that we would then have a starting place for agreement, we would know, okay, there's consensus here that, this is what we want this thing to look like. And maybe there's not agreement on, these other areas, but at least we would have a starting point of where we agree and where we don't agree. I mean, I know we have understandings of sort of vaguely of where one another stands, but I don't really have a sense of individual board members' vision for the town myself.
Marie,
Would there be any appetite to a field trip to a town who has had this for a while, not just voted it in, but can we go, talk to a planner, see how they like it, see what it looks like? Would there be any appetite for any of you guys to go see,
Well, I don't know about a field trip.
see what it looks like?
I don't
I
know
mean,
about
I'd be glad to see if I could figure out a town and get somebody to talk to us if anybody wanted to.
I'd do that. Carl?
no, I mean, sure. The part, I guess I'm interested more in than in looking at one case, though. I think it's a good idea. Sort of finding out a little bit more about the track record of communities that have adopted this kind of zoning.
Yeah, I think we've heard, Carl, from Jeff and Randall, the towns that have accepted these bylaws, these open space bylaws, are by and large happy with them. And you may not remember, you may not have been a member of this board when Jeff said it, but he said, in his experience, bylaws like this have been passed by other communities at town meetings overwhelmingly. It's not even been close in a town meeting. Now, I don't know how well this would, hang on, Kate. I'm not sure how long or how close a vote would be in this town, but I'm just saying what Jeff has told us, which is in other towns, the bylaw has been overwhelmingly accepted. And as far as I know, the towns are happy with those bylaws like ours, not word for word, obviously, but bylaws like ours. To the extent we could survey a range of towns, that would be good. I kind of like the idea of finding one and visiting it if it's not, on the North Shore or.
No, I
somewhere.
think they're like mid-state, aren't they? I mean,
Yeah, I think there's some.
it sounds like it
closer
was
to
like
us.
Shutesbury and, I don't know, some of those towns that were sort of Worcester area. It sounded like,
Yeah, that's about as far as I'd like to go.
Mm-hmm.
And anything east of Worcester is sort of a different
yeah,
world.
yeah, because it's,
Anyway.
right, that's not like our town, but it'd be interesting to talk to, I don't know, a selectman or a town administrator or a planning person
Or
if we
several of them.
could, and just see how they felt it went.
And it could be an open meet. As many of us come
Yeah.
as possible.
As a selectman if they
We'd
want
post
to.
the meeting and invite the public to rent a van and come with us.
That, or if you're gonna do that, have them zoom into one of our meetings and
Yeah.
maybe give a
Well, that's true. Instead of
Some
going-
other possibility.
summary of what they feel about
Yeah,
any given.
what they like, what they don't like.
That might be.
I'd like to see something in person, I
Yeah.
would, but I don't know
I don't know how, yeah.
how that works with a bunch of people going out to look at.
Maybe,
They could have pictures too.
I'd be interested to actually see something, to see an actual site. And the fact that something passes, how it passes at town meeting, I'm more interested in seeing actually how it played out.
sure, I agree with you. And I think if we got
And by played out, I don't mean, how the TA thought about it, the town administrator or the select board. I'd be interested to do an actual site visit and see what the thing looks
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. Go see it, have them tell us about it if we could.
I don't have a sense of, are there any towns in Berkshire County that have done anything like this, or?
No.
No,
I don't think so.
I think maybe like Amherst area, maybe. I mean, Jeff comes from that area, but I'd like to see a town that's had it, that has used it for a few years, not just voted it in.
Right.
I think
So
you'd
that we
like
could
to
both,
see.
we could talk to the people who were
If we-
involved in it. And the great thing
How
about
it
a
played
site
out.
visit would be to actually see an example, of something that had been approved under this bylaw. I suppose in a Zoom, if they were willing to cooperate, they could show us pictures. just like, Randall has
Yeah.
shown us pictures in his previous presentations.
So, yeah, I need to be on, just as, we do site visits in the LPOD, I need to be on the ground. I don't really find the Zoom for assessing an actual built environment. No, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah, okay, well, I'd say that's ideal too.
Yeah, so would you like me to see if I can find a town that has this and would like to, would be willing to talk to us? Should I try to find something?
I think that's,
Talking to Jeff and asking him,
Yeah,
asking him to recommend. I mean, I would ask him, actually, I'd be interested. He's talked about the density neutral developers bonanza. I'd like to see what that looks like, So I think it would be good to ask him to show us where it has worked.
Yeah, yeah.
And where it has,
even just to get the list of communities that have, out of the whatever 250 communities in the Commonwealth, I mean, who has adopted this? I mean, that I would love to see what that list looks like.
right, right.
yeah, I have no idea how long that list would be, but that's a good point. I do like the idea of a physical visit if we can pull it off. So Marie, thank you for offering to do that. Would you go ahead
I'll
and
try, yeah.
maybe, I think a starting point is Jeff
I think, and you have to do Jeff,
and.
because I can't do Jeff.
Exactly.
I mean, you have to just ask him.
Yeah, I can talk to
Yeah.
him
But then
and,
I can follow up.
and we'll see what we can come up with and when. Obviously, the sooner the better, it seems to me, during,
Yes,
people
I
are
think we
all on
need to
vacation.
do this so we can get on with this.
Right.
But we're not going to stop working on this.
We're not going to, no, but I
Oh,
don't,
okay.
I didn't envision that, but I think it will be helpful to know what other people think of it that have done it, maybe.
Should we talk about Kate's thinking that we should be able to articulate our vision for the town and why we think this bylaw makes sense individually? I mean, I can speak to it, why I think it makes sense. I think an organized approach to the preservation of open space in this town that goes beyond just 2 and 4 acre zoning in residential areas makes a lot of sense. I do not believe that this bylaw opens up development that would be antithetical to the character of the town. And I think mandating via conservation restriction, open space in large-scale developments, residential developments, is generally a really good idea in a town with the kind of semi-rural character that we have. So in a nutshell, that's why I think it makes sense. And that's my sense of what this could do for the town.
I have to tell you, I was in Rensselaer not long ago, and I was visiting a friend who lived in this nice subdivision. They were big lots, lawns were taken care of, trees were beautiful, they had little gardens. The one thing they didn't have was any open space. There was nothing saved. It was just streets and streets of nice big lots, but no woods, no fields, no place where people could, there were streets they could walk on, cul-de-sacs and this. And I thought, this is not what we want in Stockbridge. And I just think we need to conserve, what we have here before it just becomes house, even 2 and 4 acre lots. I just think we need to conserve some bigger areas and then put the houses together. That's really kind of my concern, but I do think we need to be able to, if it's at all possible, make it affordable kind of just regular houses for people. I don't know how you do that. Not McMansions, not big 4 acre lots with large houses on them. It would be nice to have, I don't know how you can mandate that, but that's what I would like to see. That's my vision for Stockbridge, is just little developments with open space in houses that are affordable for people like us.
you're not gonna control any of that.
No.
Because all this is 20 acre plus. So you're gonna have your houses regardless of what size they decide to put on there.
Right.
You know, so you're really gonna affect the larger parcels, but when you talk about regular housing, single-family homes, we're really not talking about that part of it. We're
Right.
talking about 20 acres plus and what could go on a bigger piece of property. And so you know, you're gonna use up your streets with 2 and 4, but there's a lot of land in this town preserve now. I'd love
Yes,
to
that's
know
true.
what that number is. I don't know what that number is, but I know there's a good deal of land preserved now.
Preserved in what way?
Well, it's either under ag restrictions or permanent conservation restrictions, and I don't know what that number is, but I have a feeling it's pretty substantial. So I again agree with the concept of preserving the land, but I don't want to hurt people that have purchased land with the idea of possibly doing something with it in the future, and we're changing the rules in the middle of the game.
Except that
If it's
that's what
density
zoning
neutral.
does.
I know, but I worry about that
There are always
because we
people
seem to be so,
I think what I was hoping.
can I finish? Because we seem to be so bent on preservation, and I'm a conservationist, I am. But not to the exclusive of everything else. We always talk about affordable. We always talk about possible jobs created. Well, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna have to have some development. Because if you ever want a family to be able to move, a younger family here, or you ever want a job to be created in Stockbridge, you're gonna have to have some development. And I just wanna make sure that what we put in place isn't so restrictive that, good for you, you made a bylaw, but the rest of it's out the window because all you cared about was saving the land.
Does density neutral make a difference to you?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Number of houses?
Building boom. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, because you're gonna have the same number of units on a property than you would if it wasn't. Now, how is that a building boom? Yes, it's less expensive for the developer to put those things together, but does that constitute what would become a building boom? I don't know.
Kate, you wanted to say something?
Well, what I was really hoping for was not so much a discussion. We have plenty of that. It was just everybody sort of going around and saying how they want the town to look and feel.
I think that's what we're doing.
Well, I thought I was doing that, but I mean, I don't want to monkey with downtown. Let me be clear about that. I don't want McDonald's. I don't want Motel 6. I don't want any of the things that any of the rest of us don't want. The character of this town is wonderful in this business area, but there are plots of land, big plots that could be developed in ways that I think could be not as attractive for the town in the future. And I think that would be a shame. That is not a vision of the town. Lots of subdivisions with long winding roads and streetlights and Rensselaer type development. That's not my vision for Stockbridge. I love it the way it is. That's not to say that, I agree with Wayne. We've got a declining population. We've got expensive projects facing us. Let's not forget about the high school and the cost of the tax burden that's going to put on us sooner or later. Taxes are going to go up. Population is declining. There are few young families in town, and I think some kind of development is not necessarily a four-letter word. I think we need to look at opportunities to increase the tax base, frankly.
What has prevented these developments from coming in now? How come we're not seeing it? If there's a time where you would think something like this would be proposed
There hasn't
with
been
the
much
real
land for
estate
sale.
boom that's happening now, what's preventing it?
I guess there hasn't been much land for sale, except Assisto. I mean, I guess.
So
part of it.
I guess this is a discussion. I'm going to comment here too. I was hoping we could just go around one by one. We do have growth in this town. I mean, just take a look at our building permits collections in the annual report. We've got a property going up the road for me for over 2 million and one in the other direction for around the same amount. So, we do have growth. It might not be, condos and something along the lines of Marival, but we certainly have an economy here in this town. And as far as the population, it's a changing population, but it's not a shrinking population. And, the national population is decreasing as well. I mean, what's happening here in some ways mirrors the national population trends.
Does anybody else want to comment in response to Kate's going around the room with a quick statement? Nancy, do you have a thought, or Carrie?
What's the percentage of second homeowners in town?
Over 50%.
Yeah,
More than that.
yes, close to 60.
It was 67 when I was tax collector.
So,
But that
Go ahead, Nancy.
sorry, Nancy.
That just leads me to think that it's the second homeowners are coming in and buying the big parcels and building the big houses. That's not getting young people into our town to make it more vibrant. That those are people who are only here a certain portion of the year. And more than likely, I can't speak for all of them, but they don't work here. And granted, they're coming to spend money in the town, but it's not year round. And there's not that much in Stockbridge. I'm sorry, but our Main Street is what, a quarter of a mile long. And I came here downtown with my friend from Maine the other day. And okay, we went to a couple of stores, and yes, we did have a nice lunch. We had a nice snack, and then, okay, let's go to Lennox. I'm sorry, but there's really not much opportunity for young people to be here. And I don't know, there's empty storefronts, I don't know. I can understand like people wanting a lot of open space that we have, right? Preserved already. But I don't know. I also don't want to see these big parcels of land, these 100 acres or even 50 acres coming in and somebody split them. Okay, 4 acre zoning, 4, build your house, but and then what do? And there's the infrastructure with the roads and the lighting and the sewer and the plumbing and all that stuff. I don't know, there's got to be an answer. And if we can at least look at other things, I think we have, I think we should look at other things. So we can't just sit and say, oh, I don't like this. And what are you going to do? Well, I don't know. I don't like this. I don't like that. And everybody says what they don't like. But there's a lot of people that I have talked to on my own who agree that something needs to be done. And you can't just say, oh, we can't do anything. We can't do anything because people love Stockbridge the way it is. That's why they moved here. But then they're the ones building the huge houses. Or the other coming into the bowl and tearing down family cottages and building mega million houses on the bowl. And they're affecting the water and on the bowl. And something needs to be done, and I think we need to investigate a lot of avenues and not just say, oh, this isn't any good, so throw it out and keep everything the way it is.
Well, Nancy, you're on a board that oversees the Lake and Pond Overlay District, all the lake special permits.
I know, and I'm only one of 7, but I'm saying that's why I'm here, because I want to be involved.
Well, speak
I
up.
want to look at everything. I don't just want to come in and say, oh, well, we like Stockbridge for the way it is and we don't want anything to change.
Well, maybe if you don't like the big McMansions on the lake, maybe you should speak up when they come before the planning board.
Hey, I'm only one of 7.
You have a little-
Gary, do you want to say anything in reaction to Kate's?
I mean, for me, I'll just say what Nancy said, she doesn't want to hear, but I like Stockbridge the way it is. And I'm not, I think you guys know, I'm not a fan of this proposed bylaw. And, I'm willing to work on it, but I truly don't think that, it'll pass the town meeting. But, if I'm only one of 7, and if, that's what you guys want to do, I will give it my best effort to do that. But I guess the other thing is that, we keep talking about affordable housing and getting young people into town, but, as everybody's just already said, our town has changed to where people, are, including the pandemic year last year. I mean, we had a record year in sales. We just discussed it at the assessors meeting on Monday. We had the best year on record that Mike Blaze can remember, and it wasn't from, young people with young kids, I mean, it was people that have money that in some cases overpaid, depending on your definition of overpaying. But, people paid more than what people were asking for to be here. So I don't know what you necessarily do to compensate for that.
In what part, Gary, I'm just curious of that proposal, don't you like?
I just don't think that nobody's proven to me that we need it. I don't see where we need it. And again, I'll even go back. I mean, what we wanted to do, or what we were asked to do, I should say, is to do something about the cottage era state bylaw. And now we're, knee deep in this. And, I just don't, I think we just went off we went off on the other road, and I just don't think that, as much as, Nancy said that there's folks that like it, I think there's a lot more that don't, but it's just my opinion. I mean, it isn't scientific or anything. It's just, depending on, your circle of, friends and acquaintances and that, as to how people feel. So with all that said, I don't think we really have gotten any place in particular at this point.
Carl, do you have a comment in response to Kate's invitation for your vision for the town?
Well, sure. I mean, on one level, I'm in kind of Gary's camp in the sense of I like it. I like things just fine how they are. But the reality is, of course, that things, change all the time, and I think that the responsibility of this board is to have tools to guide changes and proposals in a way that is, and I know we are all on the same page in the sense of a certain kind of sense of our community and desirous of making it making it better, or at least keeping it beautiful. I have some. I think that it's really interesting, Marie's suggestion about sort of going and digging into how other towns are dealing with other towns that are comparable in some ways to Stockbridge. Not that there are any really, but seeing what their zoning bylaws look like and what's worked. And this is actually, I think sort of relatively new stuff. There may not be that much of a track record. I mean, the standard 2 and 4 acre zoning we have is, I mean, how long has that been in place? I mean, since the 1970s or something. So, and it's imperfect. I think that a couple of, I mean, I think it's really important to consider some of the subdivisions and things that have taken place in town, and see, what is successful and, what, people have, responded positively toward. I could make a sort of very informal kind of list, but I think that there's some stuff that's worked and there's some stuff that, you could sort of say, wasn't that great. Uh, I also, we're not developers. We're not making these projects happen. It's, someone has to want to, either develop their own land or sell it, and then, developer needs to come in with a plan. A lot of what I like about the NHRPZ is that it does provide some, I mean, maybe even possibly too much kind of process in the way of coming up with a good proposal. I mean, I'm not talking about the bylaw right now, but I guess, I would like to make sure that if and when, and I'm sure that it will happen, but we start coming under some big development proposals, and where that would be, I can, aside from some of the ones we've been dealing with already, but where that would be and how that would look, I can't speculate. I mean, a lot of the town is tied up in conservation land, as Wayne's saying. I have a map of, all that we did at the land trust, and it's a little bit out of date, but not much, of all the conservation land in town. So there's thousands of acres, which isn't to say that, more in places where it would make a difference to the quality of life of neighborhoods, wouldn't be a bad thing, and thoughtfulness that's kind of built into some of this process is I think good. But I agree with you that there are times when the classic zoning parameters don't really necessarily lead to desirable outcomes, and my parents' farm in Lenox was zoned 1 acre. 1 acre zoning for, and practically 200 acres. I mean, you could have built Levittown down there. It didn't happen because they didn't sell it to a person who was going to do that. But and then we ended up putting conservation restrictions on that. It was actually a good thing. But it's in the absence of sort of a master plan for the town, which I think is something we really need to address, updating that. It's a little hard for me to have a handle on like where exactly and how, we might want to encourage development. I mean, this is a good kind of overall framework for an idea. I think it's sort of selling itself a little hard. And on some level, I agree with Kay. I mean, I'm happy to work on it. I agree, but I agree with Kay. It's like, what are we doing? I mean, what's the panic? But I guess we have to get ourselves organized for the future. I feel like, the cottage era estate business, is so narrow and affects so few properties, that it's almost, a little bit meaningless. This casts a broader net. I've got the list of Michael Blay's list of, acreage and property owners and so forth. And, the, over 50 acres. Over 80 acres is the first page. And I was looking very hard, by the way, for the cottage era estate. Where does it say that the property needs to be over 80 acres? Is that possible?
It says it, yeah.
I have it right here. And I don't know, like, that if my eyesight's going, but I couldn't find that.
You mean in the draft, the new draft?
The new draft, yeah, I guess.
No, I don't know about the new.
Yeah,
The old cottage era thinks it.
I think the old one, the existing one talks about 80 acres.
Right.
I must have the draft. Okay, that's understandable. All right.
Much of a cottage era draft.
I just think we do have to make sure that we've got a good set of tools to guide potential developments. And just in a sentence, my concern with the NHRPZ as it's written right now is that the goals are really terrific and it all sounds great and so forth. But then when you get into the details, I'm not quite sure exactly what we're opening the door up to. So, and I'm not saying that it's, it's just, I think there's some loopholes and I think there's some things that we definitely need to hash out.
Does anybody else has everybody spoken who wants to speak in response to?
I sort of entered the discussion, but I don't feel like I was able to express my vision. So if
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to say that I love the town the way it is. And I know an awful lot of people also love the town the way it is. And I love the idea of the focus downtown. And, I think that things can change downtown and that downtown could be a little bit more, to me, it's looking like it could be, some things have kind of fallen through the cracks a little bit and maybe, some things could be done to make it look a little bit more attractive. But yeah, I think things could change downtown a little bit, but just, as long as you keep that smart growth approach focused downtown. And then I think the rural outskirts, I think that's our gold mine, frankly. So I think that's providing us with a healthy municipal budget. And I love the way it looks and feels. I guess, one thing I love Marie's idea of looking at this thing in implementation. When I read it, I find sections incredibly confusing. And I also wonder, a lot of it seems really subjective to me. So that seems like a real weakness. And then I wonder about, in addition to Marie's idea, maybe we could take a look at some of the existing developments in town to see, what we like, Oronoque, I think was really beautifully done. And then maybe look at something like Stone Ridge off of 183 to see, how would you have done this one differently? I'd be interested to know what this board would have done with a development like that. What would you have done differently from the way it was done? And that was done with our subdivision regulations. And I don't feel that we've gotten an adequate answer from Jeff on why the cluster bylaw is not workable. And, and then I look at our subdivision regulations and I just feel that there's a heck of a lot more clarity there than there is in some of the wording in the NHRPC. And I agree that, you look at a standard cluster development, there's one right over the line off of Route 7 heading over towards Lee. And you look at something like that and it's sort of, I think it's in that area where there's a turn off onto Yale Hill Road. And yeah, I agree. That's, I don't like the look of that. And I don't think that's
Oh, Stockbridge, Paris.
Paris.
I don't know.
What are you talking about?
On the Playhouse? By where Carl lives?
That's on my morning jog. Entire process.
And maybe,
sorry.
maybe that's where we all,
Absolute horror.
yeah, it's pretty bad. Maybe that's where we all agree. We don't want this, and that's, maybe really good.
Is it Church Street?
Which one are we talking about? I don't
Talking
get
about
it.
Church Street in
Hang on.
South Lee?
That's the Lee Stockbridge Road. It's next to, God, there were like a little apartment building.
Oh, next to Suburban Medical,
Oh, okay.
That's Suburban Medical. It's
Yeah.
like
right? Between Suburban Medical and the Stockbridge Town
Like-
line.
Fox Home.
duplex houses and everything.
Fox Homes, yeah.
Yeah.
Called Holly
Or
House.
they build
So
another.
Bill, if you head up Route 7 north from Stockbridge downtown,
Yeah,
and you go past Campusa Bog, right? You know where I am?
yeah.
Okay, and then there's a right-hand turn onto, I think it's
Stockbridge Road.
Towards Lee, right.
and
It's just
on your,
before,
on your left.
Suburban Medical.
It's those enormous houses that are actually duplexes.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
duplexes.
It's appalling. It's awful.
So, maybe that's our starting point. We all agree. We don't want that.
Well, in a way, it's a little safer, I think, sometimes to talk about other towns, like, and I see some of the things that have happened in Lenox and so forth. I mean, like, the tragedy of the condos at Fox Hollow. I mean, that was the most beautiful landscape ever, 100-year-old garden of the Westinghouse estate. And it was just sublimely beautiful. And then, like, they built these, I'm afraid rather low standard houses, and they're, all over the place, falling apart. And I guess they're probably pretty affordable, but it seems like a lot was lost in the process.
I'm not sure they are affordable.
I don't know.
I don't know. What about the place off of Old Stockbridge Road? Before you get to Elm Point, is that Stone Hill?
The reason that I'm not literally at the table here is because of this. I was so annoyed as a young man, because that property, that was such beautiful woods, and it drained right into the brook down there, the big swamp below High Lawn, and we did. I mean, we ended up trying to sue the developer. I was at planning board meetings until it came out of my ears, and it's a classic example of what the reality of, like, I think that's 4-acre zoning over there, what that does. So you have, as I don't know, various people have pointed out here already, but you have, like, McMansion. I don't think they even ever sold all the lots, and the road that was required to create the subdivision, which was frankly illegal because it was too long. It was supposed to be 500 feet, and it was actually like 3,800. So the planning board paid at the time, and it's just like, it's, I mean, I'm sure that I've been over to some of those houses, and, they're lovely people having lovely lives, but it's certainly not affordable. And it took out a lot of woods, that's for sure. And
Well, what happens to Fox Hollow, a falling down building like that, if they're not allowed to have development around it and save the building itself?
what do you mean, Fox Hollow up in Lenox?
Yeah, what happens there? That building was falling down and somebody came in and revitalized it, but they needed to do the housing around it to make it viable.
This is still a little bit ancient history, but but my recollection was there was an enormous amount of pressure during the 1970s to do development over there from, from a couple of quarters. And I think, and then of course the school going out of business. And I just think they could have done a better job, and that's where I feel like, maybe some of this process language that's written in here, may point in a better direction. But essentially, I think historically, the way that the planning board and the Stockbridge zoning regulations have worked is by keeping a foot firmly on the brakes, and I'm not like, I'm not advocating for that exactly. I just feel like, there is stuff that we can adjust about the way we plan, and that, like, if there were more actual planning, then that would be good.
Just seems like every time we talk about any kind of development, it's a bad word, it's an awful thing, it's something that shouldn't happen, and I just don't always view it that way. I'm not saying I want it town-wide and border to border, but I think there's room to have a plan that does make accommodation for some of that activity.
And Wayne, I couldn't agree with you more, but what I'm advocating, I guess, for is a good, and how we get to that point is an interesting question.
Yeah, I mean, for example, not to get right into the thick of it, but 37 Interlaken. I think that there's a way, I don't know whether Patrick Sheehan, the owner, will agree with it, but there's a way to develop that property in a thoughtful, environmentally sensitive, crowded way. I accept that the original plans that we all looked at, that the town didn't like, are a non-starter.
Well, the selectmen didn't like it.
The selectmen.
There was a whole bunch of people that did
Well,
like it. I would
actually-
make that point.
Yeah, actually, only two of the selectmen didn't like it. One of them did. It wasn't even unanimous, but it only took one to kill it.
Right.
I think there's something that could be done with that property that would comport with the neighborhood and produce an attractive, environmentally sensitive, uncrowded development on that prime acreage. Don't ask me to draw it out for you, and I don't know whether the current owner would agree to changes in his plan. He's told us he doesn't want to. I don't know whether that's a negotiating position or not, but that's a piece of property where I think a reasonable, responsible development could take place that would be good for the town, broadly speaking.
And there aren't that many places where that is realistically possible. I mean, when you look at the, I mean, to begin with, you look at the ownership and of large tracts of town, and the and what's really feasible. And I mean, I think at some point, the basic model of, our 2 and 4 acre zoning is probably going to remain a very important component of sort of infilling, if you will, some of the neighborhoods. They can spin it off, they will, and that's something we should really, probably pay attention to. I mean,
Well, I'm having trouble. Can we just have one at a time? I'm having trouble hearing the speaker when there's several people in the room speaking at the same time.
Carl, are you finished?
I am.
Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off, and I'm sorry. Marie and I were talking about sort of how to conduct the rest of the meeting. First of all, I think this has been really healthy and helpful, speaking personally, to have this kind of airing of call it visions for the future, and to, in some respects, how this bylaw could either positively or negatively affect those individual visions for the future. I'm not sure it makes a lot of sense tonight to try to go page by page through this and figure out, in light of these comments, to figure out the open points that I described at the beginning that we haven't yet come to agreement on, or tried to come to agreement on. I wonder what others think about immediate next steps. I mean, I will talk to Jeff tomorrow. In fact, I've already emailed him about examples of places we could visit and meet with people in towns where bylaws like this have been passed and have been in use. I'll do that. Aside from that, does it make sense, and I'd really love to have your reaction to this, for us to, because I think we're talking about really kind of pretty fundamental aspects of life in Stockbridge and how we see the future, should we be talking not only with townspeople, of course, but in the first instance, perhaps with the select board, the members of the select board? Does it make sense to kind of bring them into this at this stage? And maybe even other town bodies, official bodies, the Concom, I'm thinking. Maybe your outfit, Carl, the Historic Preservation. I don't want to limit it, but I also don't want to make it so big as to be unwieldy. Does that make sense?
I think that makes it unwieldy.
I think that's a good idea.
I think it makes it unwieldy. I think we have trouble enough with 7. We're going to invite 15 and we're going to go, where the heck are we going?
What about the select board? Is
I
that,
think we got to whittle this thing down to something more defined and decide what direction we're headed before we invite more people to the table.
even the
I
select?
mean, I'm all about hearing from the townspeople, but boy, to have 15 people sitting around this table, I don't know if I'm in
I hear you.
that.
Did you do that visioning thing when the town did it? When we had the visioning thing 4 or 5 years ago? So the rest of us kind of did.
Yeah,
I wonder if, because us 7 know how each other feels now, and we don't agree with a lot of things, I wonder if it would make sense to do, I mean, I know what you're saying about lots of people, but not to try to nail down this bylaw, but to the wording on Jeff's, but to do like the visioning workshop that we did, like, and see how the people in town, I mean, I know how the people that I talk to feel, and Gary knows how the people he talks to feel, and Nancy, I mean, does it make sense for us to really know how the people in town feel and do a visioning thing? Like, you know, where we had the different tables and people did this sort of thing and threw out their visions, and then we'll know. I mean, I only know the people I talk to, how they feel about things. Maybe there's a lot of people for this, maybe there's nobody for this. Will that help us to direct our next step?
You mean their opinions would be based on what our draft is?
Well,
no, I think you're talking
no,
about.
I don't think we
something
need
broader
to
than
do
that.
so much draft. I think like this, what is your vision for, what do you think this bylaw ought to be? You know, do you think we should allow, you know, whatever, and just have some questions that each table sort of talks about, and then, you know, we collect the information. It may help us to direct our steps in the next bylaw. Maybe it'd be too complicated, I don't know. But it just seems like maybe we need to know how the town really feels before we continue on with this.
Who do we invite to?
Open, I think like they did the visioning thing, you know?
I guess I would,
We'd have to get somebody that could direct it, like Randall or somebody that would know how to do, you know, how to run something like this. So it would be worthwhile and not just chaotic. But I don't know. It just seems like we need to know more.
Bill, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess, we are still in the middle of a pandemic here, so with a variant on the horizon potentially. And I think that Patrick demonstrated with his housing survey that we can reach a lot of people electronically with a survey, quite a few more than we did with a visioning in person. So my suggestion, surveys need to be written by professionals. So there's that. Surveys are, there's an art to it. But my recommendation would be that this would be something that potentially we could use Phil's services on, and that we, think about how we can develop a way to reach out to the entire town via email survey. I don't know, Patrick, you're on the call. Can you hear?
Is he actually here?
Yeah, no, I like that idea. I think the surveys are great. And we did get a lot of responses to the housing survey.
Right. I mean, I don't know if this was true or not, but I heard that it was possible to do that survey twice. So in that technical aspect of it,
It's not that soon.
be addressed. Patrick?
What's that?
So that I heard there was a technical thing where, unlikely that anybody would take it twice, but that it was possible to take it twice.
Yeah, I'm sure that's manageable. There's a lot of survey tools online.
Wait, Kate, you're not talking about potential like Stockbridge planning survey fraud, are you?
Yeah, right. Stuffing the ballot box.
Don't you just want to take those surveys twice?
But Patrick, how many responses did you get?
I think it was 211.
That's
And
211.
it's really an interesting read, actually. There's a lot of good ideas in there and observations.
Well, with the pandemic, that might be good.
So maybe you could send the results around to the planning board, Patrick?
I did do that about 3 months ago, but I can do it again.
Okay. Did everybody see that?
I think it'd be good to see it again, if it's no
Okay.
trouble, Patrick.
I'll find them. You got it.
Thank you. I think that's a good idea. I agree that getting people in an enclosed space
Got the pandemic.
at this point is probably a bridge too far. But doing it by survey, that's a pretty good turnout, 211 responses. That's better than 10%. I think that's a really good response rate.
It's anonymous,
Yeah.
I will caution that there really is, writing surveys does take training, and there is an art to it, so.
Yep. Not only that, I agree with you. Not only that, there's an art to compiling the results. Collating like responses and, dismissing angry rants that don't make sense. It's not a simple process of dealing with the responses to come out with something that is useful for us and for the town to work on.
Yeah, and it needs to be done by somebody who is really objective and does not have any interest in the process or outcome at all.
Right.
I don't know. I think, I think that we have an amazingly sort of like-minded community, actually. I mean, I'm not saying that having a survey is not an excellent idea, but, and I think that anything that we're trying to propose or change, will really benefit by having people look at it and think about it. But, basically, as far as I understand it, the job of the planning board is to review projects that come before it. In this case, we're talking about development, or potential development, and whether that's like, just large properties or, cottage estates or what have you. But then, and then, but then to guide those things and in directions that are good for the community. And I think we need to make sure, I mean, there's a real start here towards some kinds of processes that I would like to not see maybe quite so complicated, but where, you know, I think the tools might be better than some of the things that we have in our existing bylaw, you know, like the cluster bylaw is just, it's nice, but it's a little net. I don't know.
Okay. What if I talk to Michael Canellis about or Patrick, you want to talk to the select board, but talk to Michael about the feasibility of another survey, a kind of visioning survey, similar to the conversation we've been having for the last hour.
You got it. I'll be happy to.
Okay. Then I'll talk to Michael tomorrow too.
I think it will be helpful to see what direction, you know, we can go in depending on how people in town feel. Hopefully enough people will answer this survey to be of help. But
I think
we certainly aren't going to agree. Us seven are not going to.
I think if we produce a sensible survey that is not biased and is for factual, honest opinions, I believe we'd get more than 211 responses.
People are interested in this.
This is a hot button issue, and frankly, I think more so than affordable housing. It has been for several years, as we know.
Well, I think affordable housing is definitely something I hear about from people, Bill.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not convinced that we're not doing a pretty good job in that. I mean, I think we are doing a pretty good job, but I do hear about, you know, from people, the missing middle housing is a concern. You know, and house, you know, market rate housing for the elderly and that type of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's an important topic that we need to make progress on. So we've got a few next steps. I will report back on them. We can talk further at our next meeting.
Yeah, I'll try to get, Wayne just gave me the names of some towns that have adopted the NHRPZ zoning, so I will try to get somebody to talk to us, see if we can go
Okay.
sometime.
And I'll talk to Jeff
What is,
for town names.
yeah, whoever might want to go, what is like a time nobody can go, or a good time, or a bad time, or is there a day, a good day, a bad day?
Definitely a weekend.
Weekend.
Not on a weekend.
It has
I mean,
to
I
be on a
know,
weekend, right? I'm not
I
gonna,
know you can't go.
Weekend works for me.
I need a weekend.
Weekend works for you?
Weekend, did you say weekend? Yes, Kate?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know who we can
Carl?
find in a town.
If you can come back from the backup beyond, wherever you are.
I don't know if we can find anybody in a
I
town.
might already be out there.
Oh, yeah, what about the people in the towns too, right?
Where are you?
I'm in Fort Devens, which is a godforsaken place that used to be mostly a military base.
You're in Watertown, New York.
No, I mean, I'm outside of Boston. It's like an hour
Oh.
west of Boston. I'm sort of not so far from Ayer and Leominster and Fitchburg.
Oh, okay.
And they built a gigantic film studio out here, and now there's like 3 or 4 movies shooting there all the time. It makes it sound so easy, but anyway, but around the studio, trees, nothing but trees. It makes Stockbridge look like Beverly Hills.
Yeah. So does a Saturday work for most of us? Maybe not all of us, and it depends on which Saturday.
I don't know if
Yeah.
anybody in town.
I think that would,
Bill, I can also, like a Friday, I could schedule that potentially.
And my schedule's so erratic. I'm like, I mean, if you.
You'd be interested in going into a weekend.
Don't base everything on me.
No, we need
Don't.
you.
I think there are towns that might be willing to, maybe not the administrator, but people involved, like a planning board
Planning board
member, might be
chairman or
willing
something.
to sit down with us over coffee.
Jeff may have a name of somebody
Yeah.
we can, if he knows these
Yeah.
people.
Let's focus on a Saturday, but if necessary, move to a Friday.
Because the hard thing about that's gonna be, okay, this looks great, but what would it have looked like
Right.
if this wasn't
But we
incorporated?
still can maybe get some idea from, if we can talk to somebody about whether they feel this is good or not. I don't know.
Yeah,
Don't base that plan on me, please. 'Cause I'm all over the place.
I also think it's important to discover, like, what parts of the process that are written into some, like this kind of draft document, what's worked,
Right. Right.
And I think it would be good, we've got Carl from Historic, so that's great, Historic Preservation Committee. And I think it would be good to include someone from Concom too.
In a visit to a town that's applied this bylaw, implemented this bylaw. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think if more than three of us go, it's an open meeting and we have to publicize it, and it means that,
Oh, my God.
I didn't make the law, Wayne.
We need a camera crew.
Steve from CTSB, are you coming along?
Maybe we find a town on the North Shore, which would keep the public from.
From going too far, nobody's gonna want.
I'm just,
Isn't there somebody down around you, Carl, where you are now that may have this?
yeah,
No idea. I really don't. I mean, no, my planning friends are, my planning friend is a very overworked architect and is on the Cambridge Planning Board. They have meetings that get out at 11 o'clock at night.
yeah.
And
Don't say that, Carl.
We've had some that have been.
We've had some.
Yeah,
Not unknown.
yeah, let's hope we never get to go there.
Okay,
with that,
are we all ready for a motion soon?
Yeah, I
So
think
we're set for next. We know what we're doing, right?
yeah, and I think I can communicate one way with the rest of you. Just don't come back with your responses, because we don't want to violate the open meeting law. So I will report back.
Bill, you can just have Jennifer send it around and then.
Yeah, although I'm not sure that Jennifer sending it around obviates the open meeting law.
It doesn't, but it's less likely that people will respond.
Okay, that's an idea. Are we ready to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Hi,
Jennifer, do you want to call the roll, please? I'm sorry.
Kate,
Kate.
Carl,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Marie,
Yes.
Nancy,
Hi.
Wayne.
Bye.
Okay, thank you all. Thanks very much.